When you think of ancient Egypt, you probably picture the Great Pyramids, right? I mean, for thousands of years, they've been these silent, incredible monuments to a world we can barely imagine. They are maybe the most iconic things humanity has ever built, but they've always held this deep, central mystery, and we're going to dive right into it. The first question is the one we've all asked since we were kids. How on earth did they do it? How did a civilization from thousands of years ago manage to quarry, move, and then lift millions of stone blocks, some of them weighing tons, to create these unbelievably perfect structures? But there's another question that's just as baffling, and maybe even more important. Why here? If you look today, the 31 most famous pyramids are all lined up in this long chain, basically on the edge of the brutal Western Desert, miles away from the Nile River as we know it. It just seems like the worst, most difficult place you could possibly choose to build something so gigantic. And this whole geographical puzzle has been fueling arguments for, well, centuries. For every single theory about how they moved the stones, you always had that nagging question in the background. Where were they moving them from? And why this specific strip of super dry land? So, for the longest time, the debate really came down to two main ideas. In one corner, you had the land theory. This was all about brute force engineering, imagining these huge ramps made of earth with thousands and thousands of workers just dragging these massive blocks on sleds. But in the other corner, you had the water theory, which just felt smarter. It suggested that the Egyptians, who were absolute masters of the Nile, must have used a river to float the materials right up to the construction sites. It makes perfect sense, right? The only problem was, for centuries, nobody could find the river. For decades now, archaeologists have had a really strong hunch that water had to be the key. They had all of this circumstantial evidence, but they were missing the smoking gun. They were missing the actual river. And the clues just kept piling up. I mean, a lot of these pyramids have what are called valley temples, and these buildings look for all the world like ancient harbors. Then, this incredible document was found, the Diary of Mer. It's a 4,500-year-old eyewitness account that literally describes boating limestone blocks to Giza. And get this, a 2022 study even confirmed a small dried-up channel near Giza, the Khufu branch. But see, that was just one piece of the puzzle. It didn't explain the whole 40-mile-long chain of pyramids. And that's where modern science steps onto the scene to solve this ancient riddle. A team of researchers set out to find not just some small channel, but the massive waterway that could finally explain everything. This quote from the lead researcher, Iman Ghanem, just nails the challenge they were up against. She said, "But nobody was certain of the location, the shape, the size, or proximity of this mega waterway." Basically, everybody thought a river had to be there, but they had no idea where or how big it was. They were literally hunting for a ghost river. So how did they do it? Well, it was this incredible piece of scientific detective work. First, they used radar satellite imagery, which is just amazing. It can literally see through the top layer of sand to reveal the hidden landscape underneath. Once that gave them a hunch, they used geophysical surveys on the ground to map out the exact path of this suspected buried river. And then, for the final physical proof, they drilled deep into the ground to pull up sediment cores. They weren't looking for sand, they were looking for that unmistakable soil and rock that you only find at the bottom of an ancient river. And what they found was just staggering. This wasn't some small stream. It was a massive 40-mile-long river system. And the craziest part, it had been hiding right there, under everyone's feet this whole time, buried for thousands of years under layers of desert sand and modern farms. They gave it the perfect name, the Ahramat Branch. Ahramat is actually the Arabic word for pyramids, the river of the pyramids. You see, this discovery wasn't just finding a cool geographical feature. No, this was the missing piece of the entire puzzle. It was a pyramid superhighway that connected all the dots and finally explained why the pyramids were built exactly where they were. And just look at the sheer scale of this thing. We're talking 40 miles long, up to 700 meters wide in some spots. That's almost half a mile. This wasn't some lazy stream. This was a major, powerful branch of the Nile, totally capable of carrying huge barges loaded down with stone. But here it is. This is the number that changes everything, 31. Every single one of the pyramid complexes in that mysterious desert strip, from Giza all the way down to Lisht, was built directly on the banks of this lost river. The pattern wasn't random. It was deliberate.
And this right here is the case-closed evidence. Those long causeways leading from the pyramids, they didn't just end in the middle of nowhere. They were docks. The causeways for the Khafre and Menkaure pyramids at Giza led to an inlet of the river. The Bent Pyramid's causeway overlooked another one. And Khufu's pyramid, the Great Pyramid, its causeway led right to the main branch. It was a perfectly designed logistical network.
So that leaves us with one last really fascinating question. If this river was so enormous and so crucial to building the pyramids, where did it go? Well, the answer is basically climate change, but on a massive scale. For thousands of years, during what's called the African humid period, the Sahara wasn't a desert at all. It was a green savanna. But around 4,200 years ago, a massive drought kicked in. The climate got drier and drier, and the river started to fill up with silts and sand. Over centuries, the mighty Ahramat Branch slowly got choked by the desert until it finally just vanished. And there was another force at work too, something called land subsidence. Basically, the sheer weight of all that river sediment piling up for thousands of years literally caused the ground itself to sink. So the river wasn't just buried by sand from above, the very land it was on was slowly sinking beneath it, helping to seal it away from history.
You know, one of the study's co-authors, Suzanne Onstein, put it perfectly. She said this discovery reminds us of the intimate connection between geography, climate, environment, and human behavior. The ancient Egyptians didn't just happen to live near the Nile. Their entire world, their food, their religion, their incredible monuments, was completely shaped by its waters. When the water moved, civilization had to move with it.
And maybe the most exciting part of all this is what it suggests for the future. I mean, it proves that entire ancient landscapes can be hidden right beneath the surface, completely invisible to us. It really makes you wonder, if a 40-mile-long river could be lost for millennia, what other cities, what other temples, what other incredible secrets are still out there, just waiting to be found under the shifting sands of Egypt?